Joining me to discuss, Olivier Knox, the chief Washington correspondent at Yahoo News, CNN political analyst Rebecca Berg, who is a national political reporter for Real Clear Politics, and Bill Kristol, editor of the Weekly Standard. We'll get to national security in a moment, but Bill, I know that you are learning something about perhaps the timing of when Donald Trump announces whom he's going to appoint to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, obviously, he can't make that nomination until he's president of the United States, so he has to wait till January 20th. But I'm told they're very seriously considering announcing whom he's going to nominate, maybe as early as right after Thanksgiving. And the idea is, first of all, let the Senate begin its background work and all that so that the person can come up quickly for hearings and a vote after January 20th. And secondly, B, that's paying off something he promised to do. Conservatives will be very cheered up by the notion of a conservative replacement for Justice Scalia. There's a list of good candidates. They're mostly sitting judges. They're probably going to be very easy to rally Republicans around. And I think the politics of this, they think, and I kind of agree with this, is it unites conservatives. A lot of Republicans had all kinds of problems about Donald Trump, but the one thing they wanted was a conservative constitutionalist replacement for Justice Scalia. Unites Republicans. The left will sort of have to fight it because they always fight these Supreme Court nominations. But that's one of the rare fights that Republicans are pretty good at, and conservatives. They know the Federalist Society. They know how to mobilize conservative lawyers to make the case. And it wouldn't be bad for the president-elect in December and January to be having a big fight on the Supreme Court nominee, as opposed to a lot of coverage of a chaotic, otherwise somewhat chaotic transition.
Somewhat chaotic. Rebecca, let's talk a little bit about this database. There was talk during the campaign about a Muslim database. Then there's talk about a database of Muslim visitors to this country or immigrants. What's the reality here? What is the Trump team actually thinking about proposing?
Well, we've had something like this before, Jake, because you know after September 11th, the government implemented a similar database of people coming into and leaving the country from particularly threatening, perhaps, regions of the world seen as threats. And they actually decided to do away with that. DHS said not only were they worried about it unfairly targeting minorities, Muslims, but it wasn't really efficient. It wasn't really effective. And so I think this is one of the questions that Trump and his team are going to have to answer as they move forward potentially with this policy is what problem is this actually solving? Is it actually adding any information to our broader intelligence system that we already have, information about these people coming into the country? And they're going to have to address concerns about this unfairly targeting certain religions, certain minorities, certain ethnicities. And this has been a major concern throughout the campaign that they are unfairly targeting Muslims. So we haven't really heard that argument from them yet about this in particular. But we are hearing that it's something they're looking at. They had also talked about a travel ban during the campaign. I haven't really seen what's going to become of that, but this is maybe some uneven footing to start for the Trump transition, because you don't want to start with the most controversial issues necessarily when you're becoming president and trying to unite the country. It's a really tumultuous time. And
Olivia, this is one of the things that's so odd about President-elect Trump, which is he has stated positions and then stated positions that are different from that position, claimed that he never rescinded the first position, never said the second position, then claimed he never said the first one. And I mean, and then you're kind of just left like he can do whatever he wants and it will uphold something that he said.
You know, it's like covering Congress, and you got those members of Congress who say, I'm going to introduce a bill that does X, Y, Z, and somehow the text of the bill never actually drops. There's never anything actually to look at. This isn't real until Donald Trump actually proposes it and actually does. Doesn't sort of go along with someone suggesting it, doesn't let someone down in his organization do it. This is really only becomes real once he actually says it.
And it also kind of ties in, Bill, in some ways with some of these names we keep hearing being floated, like Frank Gaffney, who's obviously very controversial, and a lot of Muslims think he's an Islamophobe, et cetera. We're told he's part of the transition team. Then we're told he's not part of the transition team. I don't know what to believe ever.
I believe he's not. I believe some of his friends, thought maybe he should be and floated his name. He was for Trump, and they probably wanted to reward him by floating his name. But I would say to make the opposite side of the point Rebecca's making, generally speaking, if you look at this transition, both in the names that are being seriously considered and the policies that are being floated, they are less extreme than Donald Trump talked about in the campaign. And that's certainly true of the Muslim, this travel issue. Going back to the Bush-Obama policy from 2002 to 2011, that's not radical change, right? It may be a good idea, it may be a bad idea. Nikki Haley is a possible Secretary of State, meeting with Mitt Romney this weekend. I think actually they're within the limits of Trump and Trump world, which is still a somewhat confusing and complicated place. I would say he's being more establishment, if I could use that term, than I would have expected.
It sounds like one of the first fights that he might have on his hand will be with cities that are self-described sanctuary cities. They're proud of not enforcing federal immigration laws. If you're an undocumented immigrant, you get pulled over, you're not going to be turned over to authorities. And cities are, the sanctuary cities are saying that a lot of these undocumented communities are in crisis, and they're worried about all sorts of things, understandably so. I wonder what you think, Olivier, because if the Trump administration's first shot on this immigration issue is you need to enforce the law. If you don't like the law, fine, lobby Congress, change the law, but you need to enforce the law or else you're not going to get money. I mean, is that a battle? It seems like that's a battle they might be able to win.
Yeah, they might be able to. One of the challenges here is that the enforcement mechanism isn't all that clear. You talked about the money. Historically, it has to be money that's linked to, in some way, to the policy question at hand. So it's not clear that they would be able to find...
You can't take away education money necessarily.
To punish police departments, for example. Right?
Right.
So it's a little bit more complicated. It's not just... they can't just take away random, arbitrary sums of money from the cities. It is going to be a fight, but if you're the mayor of a sanctuary city where most of your residents are proud of that status or don't feel that, say, a teacher should be reporting a child because the child is undocumented, if you're that city's mayor, if there's not really a credible enforcement mechanism, maybe you just fight to a stalemate.
Do you think the politics of this on Capitol Hill, I mean, I know this is the kind of thing that Democrats think is going to create this Latino surge that didn't actually materialize in 2016, but might in 2018 or 2020. Is this politically something that Democrats think that they could win on?
It's actually an advantageous wedge issue, I think, for both parties, interestingly, because it pits not only, Latinos and Hispanics against the Republican Party, creates this opportunity for the Republican Party to really emphasize their focus on security and on border security and on helping American workers. But it's also an urban sort of thing, right? An urban issue. Cities where there are more Democrats than Republicans against the Republicans. I mean, it's kind of perfect for both parties to highlight both of their priorities. So I don't think either side is really going to be scared of this fight.
I want to just ask you about this fake news story thing, just because I think it's so fascinating. We just did a piece about it. A man who's made a living off of posting fake news stories from these bogus news sites that, traffic went up apparently on Facebook, according to BuzzFeed, more than legitimate news stories, said of the public, people are definitely dumber. They just keep passing stuff around. Nobody fact checks anything anymore. And then he went on to slam Donald Trump, which is kind of irrelevant, but well, or maybe not. But what do you think of this phenomenon?
No, it's really terrible. And of course, it is fake news, and they have phony kind of names of the alleged news source that sound like they could be a real newspaper or a network or something like that. I thought the most interesting thing in the little package you just did on it, though, was that Mike Flynn, who's been rumored to be the leading candidate to be National Security Advisor, passed on one of those, I guess tweeted about one, right, and linked to it.
It's still there.
I mean, it's kind of a little shocking that the former director of the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, is passing on a pretty obviously fake news story. It was
so bat poop crazy. I couldn't believe that he had tweeted it. It was this thing True Pundit or whatever, and it was saying that like all of the Clintons and all these other people were involved in child sex slave rings, and it was just nuts.
Yeah, New York Police Department investigating, I think was the claim, which maybe if you're a senior foreign policy and national security advisor in the Trump campaign, maybe you should call up the New York Police Department before you post something about that.
Or the top Clinton aides involved in satanic ritual dinners and all that stuff.
He tweeted something on that too. He tweeted something on that too.
That one sounds perfectly reasonable.
Your invitation's in the mail, I think. But I mean, there's not two-factor authorization for Twitter. It doesn't say like, are you sure? Are you really, really sure you want to tweet this?
Yeah.
Really?
They should. Anyway, thanks so much, Rebecca Berg, Olivier Knox, Bill Kristol.